Welcome to my madness, ladies and gentlemen. So today, we're going to be talking about the top 10 action figures in my collection that I would never, ever get rid of. Now, when I decided I was going to make this video, I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it actually was. Because turns out I could easily make like a top 100 figures that I would never, ever get rid of. So, I kind of had to find a way to narrow this down, so I put a couple of qualifications on how I came up with this list. One is none of my customs. Not that that would ever be an issue, because if I ever had to get rid of my collection, nobody would want my crappy customs and kit bashes anyway. But, that being said, because of the time and effort I put into some of the kit bashes and customs that I have, they are some of my favorite figures. But for the sake of this list, we're not going to be talking about those. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have some customs on this list, because I am. Just customs made by other people that actually are much better at customs than I am. So, the other thing is, it has to be either just an absolute favorite figure of mine, or it has to be something that would be hard to replace. And by hard to replace, I mean either rare or expensive to replace. Now, keep in mind that's a low bar for me, because for me, expensive is like anything more than the cost of a NECA figure. But, so anything like 40 bucks and up, I consider expensive, okay? So, it has to be something that would be, for me, hard to replace to make this list. And that's basically where we're at. So, once again, let's get ready for the top 10 action figures in my collection I would never get rid of. Alright, so in at number 10 is going to be my original G.I. Joe Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow is my hands-down favorite character from G.I. Joe. I love him in all his incarnations. Always was a huge fan. For those that don't remember, Storm Shadow's the original G.I. Joe ninja, not Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes was originally a commando. Okay, Storm Shadow was the ninja. It wasn't until Storm Shadow got so popular that they decided to make Snake Eyes a ninja like Storm Shadow. And this V1 Storm Shadow is just something I wanted for a really long time. It is not in perfect condition at all. He's got some yellowing and stuff to him, but he's mostly complete. He's all there. He's not broken. And this is just one of my all-time favorite action figures as a kid. And going into adulthood, I would just never get rid of this dude. I mean, he's not worth an enormous amount of money, you know. It's still just something that I absolutely love and just could not bear to part with. So, in at number 10, we've got Storm Shadow. Alright, so in at number 9, we have my Mafex steel figure. This is just a perfect action figure in every way, shape, or form. I mean, first of all, I like steel, okay? I was around and avidly reading comic books back during the reign of the Superman era of DC Comics back in the 90s, and I thought that John Henry Irons was the coolest of the quote-unquote replacement Superman that had came out. Although he's been done dirty many times in the comics, and let's not even talk about that Shaquille O'Neal movie, which was god-awful. I like the character quite a bit, and this is a perfect representation of him in the comics. And, you know, look, it's Mafex, okay? Like, they make really, really good stuff, and this is absolutely no exception. He's got everything you would want in a good action figure as far as articulation and sculpt go. And then just the paintwork and everything done on him, the cloth goods cape. Yeah, just one accessory, but what more does Steel need other than his hammer? I mean, this is just a perfect action figure in every way, and he is one of my favorite DC characters, and this is just absolutely the perfect representation for him. Alright, so into number 8, we have my Sentinel Fighting Armor Captain America die-cast action figure. Now, Full disclosure, this is not my absolute favorite Captain America figure, but to stick with the rules that I set, this would be, at least for me, difficult to replace. And so absolutely, I would never get rid of this figure. I've got it, I want to keep it, period, end of story. And this is one of, probably in my top 3 favorite Captain America figures of all time. I absolutely love this thing. They did such a great job on this with the die-cast parts, and just the sculpt and the paint and the articulation is amazing. And really the only complaint I've got about this guy, and I did talk about this in the video that I did on him, was just that he's true 6-inch scale instead of being kind of Marvel Legends scale, which is a large portion of my collection. So he's a little bit shorter than the rest of the Captain America figures I have, but I still would not trade this guy for the world. So well done. I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance to get a hold of one of these, if you are a Captain America fan, this is definitely a must-have figure, hands down. All right, so in at number 7, we have Mafex, Spider-Man number 185. Man, this may effectively be, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man figure that has ever been made and put in plastic form. I absolutely adore this figure. Now, full disclosure, he's not my absolute favorite Spider-Man figure, but I can objectively say he is absolutely the best Spider-Man figure I have ever seen. He is beautifully done, perfect comic book representation here. Everything on him, the articulation on this dude is just so freaking great. I mean, it is so well done in a way that I can't even explain. And like, dude, it's just such an awesome figure in how they've done this. And you know, look, I mean, Mafex makes great stuff, right? Like they do. Like, I've got a few of them. I don't buy a lot of their figures because they are kind of pricey, but they just make fantastic figures, like the steel figure that I already talked about. And it's just really hard to beat. Like, if I could only have one Spider-Man, like if I was building my collection and I could only have one Spider-Man on the shelf, it would probably be this guy, because again, arguably, it is the best Spider-Man figure that we've ever gotten in plastic form as far as I'm concerned. All right, so in at number 6, we have absolutely one of my favorite figures of all time. And that, of course, is the Exo Squad JT Marsh in his E-frame. Now, this figure was sent to me by a subscriber of one of my other YouTube channels, man, probably about 4 or 5 years ago now at this point. And I've been in love with this line since it first released. You know, first of all, because I was a huge fan of the Exo Squad series back in the 90s. By the way, if you've never watched Exo Squad, do yourself a favor. It is essentially, in my opinion, what they ripped off when they made The Expanse, which I know was a book series first, but it is a fantastically well done story, and characters, and just everything about it is beautifully done. But the toy series, this was put out by Playmates back in the 90s when the cartoon was on, was just so freaking cool. Because you're talking about, for a guy like me, grew up in the 80s, a huge fan of Aliens, and that iconic scene in Aliens when, you know, she gets the exosuit, the exo frame, and kills the queen alien at the end of Aliens, right? Like, to finally, not in the same thing, right? Like, not in the same franchise, but that idea of having an exosuit and having somebody actually do toys in these. This toy line was amazing. And of course, JT Marsh was the main character. And, you know, he had his E-frame. Got to be careful opening up the wings, because if you open them up all the way, it shoots the missiles out. But, you know, having this, you know, he's got the wings out. He's got his minigun or Gatling gun on the front. Guns over here. You know, you can actually take him out of the cockpit if you want, as he's got in there this little like 3-inch figure there. Dude, this thing is so awesome. This whole line was awesome, and they're not cheap to get a hold of today. So when, you know, somebody sent this to me, I was so thankful, because sent it to me like in the box, you know, like ready to go, like all the pieces there new. And I mean, it's just something I would never have bought for myself, because it's just too expensive, honestly, you know. And I loved this series. I loved these toys, and I will absolutely never, ever, ever get rid of this thing. All right, so at number 5, we've got a Spider-Man figure that is objectively not good. This is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man from the first Amazing Spider-Man. Now, in a lot of ways, this is not a great figure. At a time when these ball joint hips were going out of style, they put him on here. We've got no waist articulation here. This figure is too small. He's true 6-inch scale. His head's too small. I mean, there's a lot wrong with this figure. It's objectively not held up well, okay? I completely understand that, but it is outside of one Diamond Select, version of this particular Spider-Man that was put out, and a couple of, cheaper, more kid-friendly versions of this suit. This is the only time in Marvel Legends we ever got this costume, and maybe ever will. And not only that, but it's also not a cheap figure to get a hold of. I mean, these things sell for like $100 a piece, new in package, sometimes more than that. And even out of package, they sell for, 50, 60, 70 bucks. Because, really in this quote unquote 6-inch scale, Marvel Legends, this was the only time that this version of the costume was made. And I'm just a huge Spider-Man fan. I just really am. And I do actually genuinely really like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, even for all their flaws. I love those movies. I think Andrew Garfield was a perfect Spider-Man. And I just, this is one of those figures that, because it's rare, because we'll probably never get another one, and because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, I would just never get rid of this figure myself. So it's got to be on this list. All right, so in at number 4, we have the first custom on this list. There will be another, and this was a custom that was put together by a really good friend of mine here on YouTube, Collector Express. And he's absolutely amazing. This, of course, is Solar Man of the Atom from Valiant Comics, which I am a huge fan of those 90s Valiant comics. I loved those characters, Solar and Magnus Robot Fighter and Bloodshot, and Rye was one of my favorites, and Harbinger and Archer and Armstrong and Exo Man-O-War. And I have just wanted a Valiant Comics toy line for a really long time, which is probably never going to happen because, Valiant doesn't own all those characters anymore. Characters like, Solar here, were originally Gold Key characters from back in the day that got brought in by Valiant, and now they're not owned by Valiant anymore, but doesn't matter. I love this figure, not only because is it of a character I really, really love, but it's so well done. And I forget, I'll be honest, I don't remember how he made this. Like, he told me the parts he used to make this. I do believe this is a Cyclops head and then some combination of other parts to make the body, and it is so beautifully done. I mean, just the paint job on it and the texturing and the shading and everything he did on this figure. It is everything I would want from a Solar Man of the Atom figure. And just, again, it's a character I love. It's a character we'll probably never get anywhere else. It's a beautifully done custom, and it's done by a really good friend of mine. There is no way in hell I would ever get rid of this figure. It's phenomenal. And by the way, I highly recommend you guys go check out Collector Express on YouTube. All right, so in at number 3, we have what is, in my opinion, the best kind of retail, in other words, non-custom action figure I have ever owned, period, end of story. And that is the new Mezco Bishop that just came out this year. This figure is phenomenal, okay? There is no other way to say this. This figure is absolutely amazing. The accessories are fantastic. The articulation is just perfect. Everything about it. And I'm not even showing you the whole figure here because I've got his poncho on him, but oh my God, the sculpt on this thing is so well done. And again, it is probably the best action figure I have ever purchased, period, end of story. that wasn't a custom, okay? It is just, I mean, everything down to the details on the boots, just everything. And again, I love Bishop. Bishop, I think, is a great character. I think he's gone off the rails a little bit off and on over the years, but when he first showed up in Marvel Comics back in X-Men, oh my God, I thought he was just such a great character. I thought there was so much that they did that was awesome with his character, and so much they could have done, which of course they didn't, but either way, I love the character. I love this figure. Again, one of the greatest action figures ever made, period, end of story. And I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Mezco fan. Like, their kind of short, squat sculpts are not usually my favorite, but this thing is absolutely amazing, and I cannot ever imagine myself getting rid of this figure. All right, so in at number 2, we have what I believe is called Cyber Spider-Man, but I'll be honest, I don't even remember if that's what this figure is called anymore. This was, I believe, from the Spider-Man Classics line back in the Toybiz days, and this is on my list because it was a grail figure of mine. This was a figure I had wanted for a very, very, very long time, probably for over 20 years. Never picked up. And then, you know, after him having been out for a couple years, he got really, really hard to find and really, really expensive. I got incredibly lucky, managed to find someone selling him on eBay for like $45 in the package, like brand new, all there. And I scooped him up, and this was just about a year ago or so. I don't remember. I posted a video on it when I got it, but this thing is just gorgeous. Like, it really is. This is probably my favorite Spider-Man figure, and I'm a Spider-Man traditionalist. So, you know, I prefer the classic costume, but there is just no denying how beautifully sculpted and painted this dude is. Like, oh my God, Toybiz knocked it out of the park with this dude. And because he's, you know, quote unquote Cyber Spider-Man, the ball joint hips don't look odd at all on this design. He's got all the articulation that you would want on these figures, you know, all the traditional articulation, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, look at this thing. Look at how awesome this is. Now, he's older school Toybiz, so he's a little smaller. If they like redid this figure, you know, nowadays in 2023, obviously he'd be a little bit taller because they were much closer to true 6-inch scale at this time. I don't care. I don't care. This thing is so beautiful. The different plates with the silver paint underneath, you know, the plates on the chest. And in fact, if you get it at just the right angle, it's kind of hard to tell. You can actually see through the body here. There's a hole there, and then you can actually see out the back through this spider, which is just kind of a molded piece over this hole on the back. And you can actually see through him, and it's just like, look at the face sculpt on that. Dude, the web lines that are painted, it is just such a gorgeous figure. If you're a Spider-Man fan, this is a grail for your collection if you don't have him yet. You definitely need this. This is one of, if not the greatest Spider-Man figure ever made. I absolutely love it. I mean, just look at the details there on the back of the head and the spine and everything. Absolutely gorgeous figure. Just 100% something I will never, ever, ever get rid of, no matter how much money someone offers me. Okay, that's not true. Like, if somebody offered me like way more money and I could just buy another one, sure, yes. But short of that, I would never, ever get rid of this figure. It is just absolutely amazing. And in at number 1, we have the other custom on my list, and this is Mecha Hulk, or Cyber Hulk, or whatever you want to call him. And why are both of my top 2s cyber or mecha versions of another character? I don't know. Maybe just because they make for really, really cool action figures. This is another custom that was made by my really good friend Collector Express. Again, if you have not checked out his channel, you absolutely should. He makes absolutely gorgeous stuff. And this thing is, I mean, this is like a piece of art. And you know, you've seen other people do it. I've seen other people do it, where they kind of do kind of a Hulk figure, or sometimes other characters in mechanized versions. From what this is a McFarlane DC Multiverse Overkill figure. Or not, I guess not DC Multiverse, but, you know, Spawn or whatever. But Nobody has done it like this. I've not seen one other custom that comes to this level. This was something he made special for me, and I just could not be happier or more honored, to be honest, that he would put the time and effort in. I mean, just all the details that he did on the paintwork on this thing, I mean, oh my God. And he did sculpt work on here, like right here, because this thing used to have like big shoulder pads on it, and he re-sculpted the shoulders when he removed the shoulder pads, and just the detail work that was done on this guy. He completely like redid this. He made this face sculpt, sculpted this head, re-sculpted the neck so that the head sat up higher. All the details in the paintwork. This is a work of art, is what this is. This is a figure that if you were trying to buy something like this at retail, you're paying hundreds of dollars for something to have this level of detail and fit and finish put into it. And I'm just absolutely in love with this figure. It is, again, you know, we're talking about a McFarlane figure at its base, but lots of sculpting and detail work. I mean, just look at the details there, like just the little wires and things on the inside of the arms and stuff. I mean, this is just absolutely a gorgeous figure, and one that no matter what happens, I will absolutely never, ever, ever get rid of this figure. It sits in a place of prominence on my display that it deserves. So yeah, absolutely, this is it. My number one is the Mecha Hulk Custom from Collector Express. All right, guys, well, there you have it. There is my top 10 action figures that I will never, ever get rid of. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I would absolutely encourage you guys to do the same thing. I would love to see, you know, Collector Express or a lot of my other friends on YouTube who make YouTube videos, make a video, show me your top 10 figures that you would absolutely never get rid of. And trust me, it is a hard list to come up with, because just picking 10 is absolutely insane when you are a nut job, wacko toy collector like I am, and like you probably are as well if you're watching this video. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching, and always remember to enjoy your collection.